Funding for the Nash Villager podcast comes from the neurosurgeons of the Howell Allen Clinic, national leaders in brain and spine surgery, specializing in laser brain tumor surgery and robotic spine surgery. The Howell Allen Clinic. Your life is our life's work.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell's attempt to use eminent domain to block a proposed data center near the zoo has been greenlit by Metro Council. The data center has elicited massive backlash from the community. More than 500,000 people signed a petition in opposition. The Metro Council passed new land use regulations restricting such centers and imposed a temporary moratorium on them. But neither council policy has the power to fully block the zoo data center. It could be thwarted by challenges filed with the Board of Zoning Appeals, and those won't be heard until at least December. The eminent domain approach could prevent construction, but there's a long road ahead. Now that Metro Council has given its approval, the city can begin legal action to obtain the property. Metro will have to prove a public purpose for the land. If it does, the city would then be able to buy it. That won't be cheap, and some Metro Council members expressed concern over the financial risk. Last year, the plot was appraised at $37 million. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee is endorsing former State Agriculture Commissioner Charlie Hatcher over incumbent Republican Andy Ogles for the new 5th Congressional District. Lee and Hatcher have been friends for 25 years, and they've worked together in government. Lee appointed Hatcher to his state position.
We've worked farmers markets together. We've both run family businesses. And for 7 years, he served as my Commissioner of Agriculture. I know Charlie. I know his conservative values and how much he loves our country.
The endorsement comes late in the race. Internal polling shows the two candidates neck and neck, with Hatcher raising slightly more than Ogles. Hatcher has also received an endorsement from a former governor. Bill Haslam financially supported Ogles' challengers in the past, but stopped shy of endorsing a candidate until last month. While the number of Tennessee voters requesting a Democratic ballot in the primary elections is up from the last two midterms, and that growth has outpaced GOP turnout. WPLN's Mariana Bacquiao reports on where Democrats and Republicans have made the greatest gains.
Both parties saw higher turnout than previous elections, up roughly 30% from the last midterm election, and up slightly from the last open governor's race in 2018. Those primaries usually draw more voters. Compared to the last one, Democratic voters were up nearly 7% compared to Republican voters' less than 1% increase. Tennessee's redistricting push earlier this year may have boosted Democratic turnout. Counties that were split between different congressional districts account for some of the starkest gaps between Republican and Democratic voters. In Williamson County, once considered a Republican stronghold, the increase in Democratic voters was nearly double that of GOP voters. But the biggest explosion of Democratic voters was in Johnson City in the eastern corner of the state, up 116%. Despite that congressional district being one of the least affected during redistricting. Mariana Bacquiao, WPLN News.
The primary election is tomorrow. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The Tennessee Department of Correction is scheduled to execute Anthony Darrell Hines next Thursday. And as WPLN's Catherine Sweeney reports, that comes during quite a bit of discussion about the death penalty.
For weeks, more and more people have been calling for a death penalty moratorium, but yet again, Governor Bill Lee says that's not going to happen.
People have chosen the death penalty for those most heinous crimes. It's my responsibility to make sure that that law is carried out.
Why is it news that Lee is saying the same thing? Because the pressure has been building since the last time he said no, and he maintains the Tennessee Department of Correction hasn't done anything wrong. This all started in late May when the agency tried and failed to execute Tony Carruthers. The medical staff tried to place a typical IV and failed. Per the lethal injection protocol, a doctor then tried to place a central line in a deeper vein and also failed. After an hour, Lee called into the prison and ordered them to stop. That cast a spotlight on whether qualified doctors are working Tennessee's executions. First, defense attorneys for death row inmates asked for a moratorium, investigation, and protocol rewrite. Then in early July, nearly a dozen Republican state senators made a similar call. Lee made his first no moratorium announcement then. Last week, a group of about 40 doctors and nurses joined the call. Then, Tennessee's Supreme Court announced it was taking up a different death row case, that of Krista Pike, over whether her rights would be violated in her September execution. That hearing starts next week, just a few days before Hines is put to death. Amid all of that, Lee reiterated his position.
It's one of the most difficult things we do in this state. But I am committed to making sure that it is done in the way that it should be.
Both times, Lee defended TDOC and said the agency followed the rules.
I'd invite him to reread the protocol.
That's Kit Thomas, an attorney for Daryl Hines on This Is Nashville.
And I'd invite him to read the excerpts of the deposition that have been released of Dr. Mark Fowler, where he says, I haven't set a central line in 13 years. He attempted to do so in May, and he wasn't able to do it.
She notes the rules say TDOC has to find a doctor that can perform the procedure. TDOC has refused to confirm whether the same doctor will participate in Hines' execution. Unless the courts intervene, that will take place at 10 a.m. next Thursday. Catherine Sweeney, WPLN News.
Separately, a second person on death row is suing the state of Tennessee for potentially infringing on his religious rights. John Michael Bain, who's been sentenced to death, and his priest are suing after the state denied Bain the ability to make a confidential confession. People on death row are only able to speak with clergy on recorded lines. The state keeps the recordings, and law enforcement could potentially release them if requested. The lawsuit alleges that this policy violates Bain's freedom of speech and equal protection. Bain, whose execution date is not yet set, is the second person on death row this year to sue the state over religious rights. Krista Pike had challenged the state's current execution protocols and was offered a choice of an alternative method of execution. In January, Pike sued, arguing that offer violates her Buddhist faith by making her participate in her own death. Pike also takes issue with being denied access to her Buddhist advisor during the last 12 hours of life. She's scheduled to be executed in September. A community arts festival has reviewed its safety precautions in the wake of last weekend's deadly pedestrian crash on Broadway. Organizers for East Nashville's Tomato Art Festival had already planned on expanding the event's footprint and buffer zone this year. WSMV reports they're also adding more roadblocks and physical barriers to make sure attendees can enjoy the festival without worrying about vehicle traffic. The festival runs Friday and Saturday in the Five Points neighborhood. As Nashville continues to expand, so does its airport. Last year, more than 25 million travelers passed through BNA, and that's up by more than 1 million from the year before. WPLN's Cynthia Abrams reports what that growth has meant for travelers on the ground.
Hey y'all, this is Blake Shelton here, welcoming you to the Nashville International Airport.
BNA is trying to address the rapid growth. It's in the middle of a $40 million terminal renovation to expand its capacity. It's also adding a new parking garage and rental car facility. Despite the hubbub, some Nashville flyers feel the airport has remained quick and easy. Elijah Juan Moore lives in Madisonville, Kentucky, and BNA is his nearest major airport.
To me, Nashville is one of the quicker, as far as getting in, going through security and stuff like that.
Samyat Subramanian, who lives in Nashville and flies often, agrees that getting through BNA still feels smooth.
I don't ever feel like I have a more congestion or anything.
But the drive to the airport is another story.
It's just you feel way more anxious about driving on the road when there's that much traffic. And then you have to leave that much earlier. And so then more of your day gets carved out just for the travel.
That road congestion is an issue some are looking to remedy. As of this summer, WeGo's airport bus route is running more often, every 30 minutes or so. And construction is underway on the contentious so-called Tesla Tunnel from Elon Musk's The Boring Company, which will connect the airport with downtown. Cynthia Abrams, WPLN News.
You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. How did an idea hatched behind bars turn into a unique art event? Marquise can tell you about it.
I'm Marquise Munson here with another edition of Nashville Public Radio's What Where Wednesday, keeping you up to date with the happenings in Nashville this week. Starting tonight, Souls of Mischief is at City Winery, and on Thursday night, Pond takes the stage at Brooklyn Bowl. Also on Thursday, the Black Keys begin their 2 nights at the Pinnacle. On Friday and Saturday, the 23rd annual Tomato Art Fest is at the Five Points District in East Nashville. And also on Saturday, the Weird Sisters take the stage at the Basement East. Back at the same venue on Monday, WNXP presents Clipping and Open Mike Eagle. For more events, head over to WNXP.org/events. This week for What Wear Wednesday, we feature Where We Met, taking place at OzArts Nashville this Friday through Sunday. A collaborative incentive between Healing Housing, a recovery housing program for women, and Fall Productions, a Nashville-based nonprofit performance company. Where We Met explores themes of resilience, healing, connection, and transformation with the movement and visual storytelling through aerial and contemporary ballet, and an exhibition from Nashville artist Amari Booker.
My name is Keisha Pyle, and I am the program director for Healing Housing. Our founder, Olivia Smith, our entire concept was born inside a prison. Olivia would go and do courses and meet with women, and there was a woman in there named Stacy, and she was looking to parole, and she said, I have nowhere to go, Olivia. I'm going to go right back to the same place that made me sick, and it's hard to believe that I could ever get better there. And Olivia created this idea, and we started there, very humble beginnings, and now we are, a much larger organization. But our mission has remained the same, to serve the underserved, to find the woman who has no financial resources, and that is, for lack of better words, forgotten. The outcast. So we want to find her, and we want to give her the chance that she couldn't afford, maybe financially or spiritually.
My name is Rebecca Hampton-Barger. I am the founder and executive artistic director of Fall Productions. We are a Nashville-based nonprofit dance and arts organization. Our mission is to create high-quality, multidisciplinary work with depth that is for, by, and about marginalized communities. So in the past, that has largely meant the chronic pain community. Recently, with this new project, the addiction and recovery community as well. It's a cast of 6 incredible women who are performers, some of the most exciting dancers from the Nashville dance community. But basically, it's an aerial ballet, so it incorporates a couple of different aerial apparatuses and then also contemporary ballet, more grounded movement, kind of a mixture of the two. It is not a linear narrative. We're more looking at zooming in on various aspects of the experience of the average healing housing resident. We really pulled a lot from input from the women of the program. We had a couple of different, writing workshops. We did several movement workshops with them. We've gone and visited their morning meditations and gathered quotes from them in a variety of things to kind of understand what are the aspects of their story that they want us to shine a light on. And so we pulled, like I said, from all these things as direct input for the movement and the choreography. The overarching point of this project is to build empathy. So between whether it is women from within the community watching the performance and seeing themselves depicted, seeing their experience reflected in a way that maybe hasn't been seen or felt before, that gives them maybe a release, as well as for people who have no experience with addiction or maybe, haven't been touched by it, and hopefully come away with a better understanding of what these women go through, their strength, their resilience, what it takes to choose to go on a recovery journey. I've been incredibly blown away and so humbled and felt privileged to be tasked with giving stewardship of these women's stories.
I think Rebecca said it beautifully. I would love for people to just come in and see the art of recovery. It's not cut and dry. It's definitely something that is very individual to the person, just like art. And I think it's something very exciting to see. I myself am very excited. I can't wait to see it. But yeah, just the individuality and how personal recovery can be and how personal art can be, and to watch it unfold.
For more information on Where We Met and other events happening this week, visit WNXP.org. My name is Marquise Munson, and thank you for listening to another edition of What Wear Wednesday.
with you.
We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday. Please consider subscribing on your favorite podcasting app. And thanks so much to all of you who've left 5 stars, a thumbs up, or a review in your app of choice. A little bit of love really does tell the algorithms that more people should hear about us. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can make a donation at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one. And we'll catch back up tomorrow.
Funding for the Nash Villager podcast comes from the neurosurgeons of the Howell Allen Clinic, national leaders in brain and spine surgery, specializing in laser brain tumor surgery and robotic spine surgery. The Howell Allen Clinic. Your life is our life's work.
Way back in 1952, the bronze Mercury statue atop Union Station took a tumble. There's been a replacement up there for the past 30 years, and that prompted the question,
the original, I'm wondering where it could be.
Curious Nashville chases down the old bronze with some twists and turns along the way. Learn more and ask your question at WPLN.org/curious.
This is the Nash Villager podcast. It's August 5th, 2026. On this day in 1891, the world's first transatlantic traveler's check was cashed at a German hotel. The traveler in question was William Fargo, co-founder of Wells Fargo, and the check was issued by an American Express, which was another of his companies. He didn't found it, but he was president. And initially, those two companies did the same thing, just in different parts of the U.S. They were essentially shipping companies. That was the Express in American Express. Well, this was a new and transformative era for a lot of things, and there was a movement underway to sort of link the worlds of shipping or mail with certain financial products. Since banks couldn't easily or quickly communicate with each other yet, it kind of made sense to link the transfer of money over distance with the transfer of physical goods. And in fact, today is also the anniversary of Japan's postal service adding a financial service back in 1875. But that and a similar system in place in the UK operated as a way that residents of one country could tap into a bank while in their home nation. William Fargo wanted to solve a more international problem: how to travel across the globe with a secure alternative to cash. The end result, which would end up transforming American Express as a company, was a globally accepted check with built-in security feature. You'd buy the checks, worth a certain amount of currency, at a bank where you had to sign each one in the presence of the teller. And then when you made a purchase or took it to a money conversion vendor at your destination, you signed it again so they could check that you were indeed the person who that money belonged to. Fargo intended his financial product to be used by high-end customers who traveled internationally. It went much further than that, becoming the standard way for even domestic travelers to carry money on trips up until credit cards became widely used and accepted. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with context and backstory from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. I can't think about travelers and the way they handle money without thinking about the tourism industry that is such an important part of Nashville's economy. But do you know how the city gets money from visitors? I don't mean how businesses attract tourists to buy their souvenirs or stay at their hotel. I mean how Metro Nashville government taps into that spending by travelers to add to the city coffers. Let's imagine a person who flies into Nashville and stays at a downtown hotel. First of all, worked into the cost of that airline ticket are local fees and taxes that Metro levies by way of the airport authority. There's a flat fee of $4.50 per passenger. For international flights, add on $5 per person. And then there are the charges that the airlines have to pay that, of course, get worked into that overall ticket price. A landing fee, renting space in the terminal, gate rental, use of the baggage handling system, jet bridge maintenance fees. All of that is handled on an item-by-item basis. The traveler pays a share of it, and that money is what keeps the airport running and expanding. If that visitor gets a taxi or rideshare from the airport, Metro adds on a $2 tax. That's specifically just for cars leaving the airport. If they rent a car, there's a different fee that stays at the airport in the form of a $10 facility charge. One way or another, our theoretical visitor now has gathered their luggage, left the airport, and made it to their home away from home somewhere in the downtown core. And now another set of taxes come into play. Across Metro, there's a 6% base tax rate on hotel stays. But on top of that, there's another 1% hotel tax that collects money for the Sports Authority. And since 2020, folks staying downtown have paid an additional $2.50 a night. Most of that money is earmarked for the Music City Center. The logic being that since downtown hotels and the city-owned downtown convention center form a sort of symbiotic ecosystem, it's a way of targeting a tax on the people most likely to be using that expensive facility so that it sort of pays for itself. A smaller portion of the downtown-specific hotel room tax goes into a separate fund that pays for efforts to market the city to visitors. Again, the logic is that since so many of the people who are reached by those advertisements stay downtown, we're having them pay for the ad buys to lure in the next round of tourists. Now, that piece of Metro code was written in such a way that the extra fee was supposed to lower this year. But the Music City Center is also looking at ways to expand, which will cost money. Also, the money from that tax that hasn't been spent yet by the Music City Center caught the attention of state legislators this year. A law was passed creating a state board that gets to decide how it's spent instead of leaving that decision to Metro. Okay, so hotel rooms are taxed, but our visitor hasn't just come here to sit in a rented room all day. They're going out, seeing sights, and popping into honky-tonks. If they decide to visit the National Museum of African American Music, they pay a little extra tax on the price of the ticket. But that tax, while collected by Metro, is given right back to the museum, specifically for use on the costs related to maintaining the building. Now, this may seem strange at first glance, but the thing to remember is that the museum occupies the space that used to be the city's old convention center, and it's part of the whole Fifth and Broad complex that was developed by Metro. So the ownership situation is complicated. This is a way of having the city pay for its obligations regarding the building. And there are similar taxes in place on tickets for events at Municipal Auditorium and the city-built soccer stadium. More broadly, there's an extra 0.5% layer of sales tax charged on everything within the downtown core, and liquor by the drink is subject to a 15% tax. Basically, Nashville's tax code is written so that every place or service that a tourist is most likely to use carries a little bit of extra tax. But of course, if we as locals need to use the airport to go downtown, we end up paying those extra fees and levies too. In just a few minutes, this week's edition of What Wear Wednesday is coming up after the newscast.
Funding for the Nash Villager podcast comes from the neurosurgeons of the Howell Allen Clinic, national leaders in brain and spine surgery, specializing in laser brain tumor surgery and robotic spine surgery. The Howell Allen Clinic. Your life is our life's work.